Hello everyone, welcome to PhoneUX. So today I'm going to cover the TCL 30z, and the reason I got this phone is because I want to see how cheap I can actually get a phone that is still usable. So this is one of the options I found, the TCL 30z. So I kind of want to go over some of the specs. I'll just shoot them off real quick. So for starters, it has a 2 GHz processor, it has 3 GB of RAM, it has 32 GB of internal storage. It has an 8 megapixel rear facing camera and 5 megapixel front facing camera, and it runs Android Go. Alright, so I want to go over the pros first. So the first pro is that it has a removable battery. Now this is a feature that kind of has gone by the wayside. I don't know why. I loved having a removable battery. Loved having the backup battery when my phone decided to run out of battery. In the middle of the day, instead of having to charge it, I just pried it open, switched the battery, and I'm back at 100%. So that was a nice feature of back in the olden days, but just not available anymore. At least not too common. And so that's one of the cool things about this phone. Maybe in the future the flagship phones will actually have removable batteries again, but for now, this is definitely a pro for this phone. Another benefit of having a removable battery is that as it starts aging and the battery can't hold as much charge, you could just buy a new battery and replace it without having to go to a technician of some sort to have the battery replaced, or even having to pry open a sealed phone. Next is that it actually has a good battery life. Considering it has a 3000 milliamp battery, which is not exactly a lot nowadays, it does last a long time. It easily lasts all day. And the third pro is that it has Android Go, which for a phone with these specs is definitely a plus, definitely a necessity actually, because the full Android OS is gonna fill up the RAM instantly. It's gonna make the phone run super sluggish. So Android Go does help with that, especially if you're using the light apps that are made for Android Go specifically. That definitely helps quite a bit. So now to the cons, which is a slightly longer list than the pros. First one being that it has slow performance on a lot of the full apps actually, and I think it's more something to do with the TCL brand, or at least this phone specifically. I've tried some similar functions on other similarly priced phones, and I didn't get the same results. I feel like this one was actually a little bit slower than the others, even though it touted an extra gigabyte of RAM. Moving on from that is the screen. So the screen just leaves me wanting more. When I'm in the sunlight, I want more brightness. When I'm viewing it in an awkward angle, I want more viewing angle, which you would get from an AMOLED screen. It also only has 720p HD, which leaves me wanting more pixels. I want to watch high def or full HD minimum on a phone. So then moving on to how the phone feels when you're typing. And the haptic feedback, which I like to have it very subtle, is a little bit inaccurate, messy, sloppy. It's just not a good feeling for the haptic feedback. And first thing being that I can't seem to adjust the intensity of it. I like to have it softer, so it does become quite intense after a little bit of typing. At times when I do start typing a little bit faster, and instead of being a haptic feedback, it's more of a full-on vibration until I finish typing. Yeah, it does kind of take away from the experience. So actually what I did with this phone, I just removed the haptic feedback altogether, and it's a better experience. Not as bothersome. Next is the camera, which is a definite con for pretty much any phone in this price range, but this one in particular, it seems to have less megapixels than other phones in this price range. This one has an 8 megapixel rear facing camera and a 5 megapixel front facing camera, which the front facing camera is about par, but the rear facing camera is shy about 4 megapixels. And so with this camera, one is that you're getting kind of faded colors. It's not as crisp. You could potentially edit the photos to make them look pretty decent. Other phones in this price range have similar issues, so it's just a price range issue, not necessarily this phone. So one of my biggest pain points when I was testing this phone is that it couldn't connect to my 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi router. I had to enable the 2.4 gigahertz signal in order for this phone to connect to my Wi-Fi, and not a big deal. That's fine. Just do it once and you're good. However, it just means that it cannot run or cannot download as fast as the 5 gigahertz, and it's noticeable. So I was able to run a few tests. Phones that were connecting to my 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi were getting 180 megabits per second, or even higher actually. And the phones connecting to my 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection were only reaching about 30. So that is a big difference. Maybe not when you're browsing, but if you're watching videos or trying to, when it tries to buffer HD, or if you're downloading a game or app or something, you're going to notice it, and that's definitely a negative. I did notice that the browsing the internet was slow, but I don't think that was caused by the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection. I think it's just this phone was just sluggish on the browser, just like other apps like YouTube and mainly the full apps. The light apps did run pretty good, so if you're looking to get one of these phones, if you're just using the text messaging, and maybe some light apps, you'll probably be all right. You'll get some headaches when it comes to the full apps. And for those that don't know, the light apps are basically light versions of the full apps that the developers went and created specifically for Android Go, and then that would be why it behaves better. The last one is the internal storage limitation of 32 gigabytes. So you can add an SD card, which could be used for movies, photos, videos, and certain things like that. However, a lot of apps don't work on the SD card, so mainly the apps will stay on the internal storage, and 32 gigabytes nowadays is not exactly a lot. So you could easily fill that up just with apps, not even adding photos or videos. So that could be a pain point for some. Again, if you're a light user, that 32 gigabyte internal storage might not be a big deal. You add an SD card for your photos and videos, and you'll be fine. But it is a big limitation, and at least for me, because I have about 50 gigabytes just of apps. I tend to download them and not remove them because I'll use them maybe 5 years down the road or something. But for anyone that's like me that just hoards apps, it's going to be problematic. With all that information, I would like to give my recommendation on this phone, and basically it's kind of like a don't buy. There are other options in this price range. I tried out the ZTE Blade A51 and the Nokia C21, and I would say both had better experiences, or gave me a better experience in the daily use. Now I did have issues with Teams and Outlook because I was trying to use this for work, and the TCL actually was able to use Teams and Outlook properly while the other two were having issues. So I'm not sure, maybe that's a RAM thing, because the other two phones had 2 gigabytes of RAM and this one has 3, but for some reason those apps actually worked with this phone. So that's, if you're going to use Teams and Outlook, definitely get this one over the other two. But if you're going to use other apps, then this one might not be the one for you. Alright, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. On this corner, I'll post the video comparing this TCL 30Z with 3 other phones in similar price range. Please check it out. Thank you. See you next time.